Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Maqbool, with you at B2B World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the Prime Minister's visit to the Gulf states. The trip to UAE has concluded with a number of MOUs signed in various sectors and fields, unlocking multi-billion investments within the country. And of course, this is important, especially with regards to what this trip entails and what are going to be the future objectives that can be capitalized on, depending upon the relationship, of course, between the two countries and the success of this visit. It's important, of course, to highlight that these areas are not just important for Pakistan in terms of a broader cooperation and bilateral relationship, but also in terms of the much needed economic support at the moment, especially after the first review of the IMF has been completed within the standby arrangement. And of course, as more bilateral engagements are being unlocked, it is imperative that Pakistan is able to attract more investment from other countries. And so this particular visit to different countries is extremely important. After the UAE, the Prime Minister has embarked on a journey to Kuwait, and over there also a number of other MOUs are awaited. And this is also going to be part of the trip where various economic cooperation points are explored. And it will then culminate in the Prime Minister taking part in the COP28 in Dubai, in which, of course, Pakistan's stance on climate-induced disasters and climate change justice is going to be discussed, and it's going to be very important also, not just in terms of the kind of devastation that Pakistan has very recently faced, but also in terms of how the financial discussion around climate change, just especially for developing countries like Pakistan who are prone to disasters, is going to be met, and what sort of agenda items will be brought forth in terms of the disbursement of money for these countries, including Pakistan, and to make sure that the platform of COP28 is utilized in the right direction. So we're going to be taking a look at how this visit to the UAE, Kuwait, and then of course eventually Dubai has turned out so far, and what lies ahead in terms of the engagements between Kuwait and Pakistan, and Dubai and Pakistan. So we're going to explore this further, especially in light of the current economic situation of the country. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by our guests, Dr. Mahmood Khalid, who's a senior economist, and Mr. G.R. Baluch, who's a former ambassador. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the discussion. And Ambassador Saab, I'll start with you because I want to first understand whenever we talk about deep brotherly historic relations with any country, we of course mention all of the countries the Prime Minister has embarked on, and so far we know that the visit to the UAE has just concluded. But in terms of what is the current state of affairs of Pakistan, both political and economic, and then the kind of diplomatic relations that we enjoy with these countries, how successful do you think our visit first to the UAE has been, and then I'll talk about the rest.
Yes, I think this is an important visit of the Prime Minister to the Gulf countries. Before I go on exactly onto the visit, I think it's important to put in perspective a little bit of our historical relations with the Gulf countries. As we know that it was Pakistan which actually is one of those important actors who helped these Gulf countries to build their infrastructure.
Right. Ambassador Saab, if you just give me a minute, I'll come back and I'll give you the opportunity to continue your thought. I just want to also announce and let our viewers know that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has reached Kuwait. He had embarked on a 2-day journey to the country after wrapping up his trip to the UAE, and it has now proceeded to the state of Kuwait, where he will be meeting his counterparts there and engaging with a number of economic cooperation. And so he has now reached the country, and an update for all our viewers. Yes, Ambassador Saab, please continue.
Yeah, so I think we have to look at it. And also that I always been advocating when I was in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also I had the opportunity of being in Pakistan's embassy to Kuwait, that these Gulf countries are core regions, strategically, geostrategically and geoeconomically vital for Pakistan to have really very, very close relations. And of course, they acquire much more importance since more than half of our remittances, which come from all over the world, that is 54% of our remittances come from the Gulf region. And of course, on the top is Saudi Arabia, and the second is UAE, and then third or fourth is Kuwait. And at one time, in fact, Kuwait was third. But then after the invasion of Kuwait by Iraq, that time the entire system broke down there, and some people had to leave. So, so what I mean to say is that while we now have embarked upon kind of regeneration of our economy entirely on all sectors, which are kind of very, very comprehensive. And if you look at the MOUs which have been signed in the energy sector, port operations, wastewater treatment, food security, logistics, mining, aviation, banking, finance. So it's kind of a comprehensive, in fact, what is what and who's who in terms of sectors of Pakistan, which will be in which we'll have cooperation with the UAE and with Kuwait. Now, I don't know if you'll have a follow-up question, but if you don't, I would like to say that essentially linking with UAE has several advantages. First, that UAE has emerged in the past decade or so as a global hub of re-export, as well as the global hub for logistics. And it has also evolved extremely sophisticated banking and financial systems. It has attracted the best minds, best skilled people in these fields that we see. So I think by collaborating with UAE, definitely not only will be tapping into the financial resources of UAE, but for me, more important is the expertise, the world-class systems that UAE has been able to develop in the past 10, about a decade or so. So I think it will have very, very positive, I think, impact on Pakistan's economy. And as we all embark on a new journey of renovation of our economy, completely reorientation of our economy, where these vital sectors that we mentioned, in which we have the cooperation, will be the basic vehicles which will take Pakistan into 21st century and will prepare and align our systems, our institutions, and our, like, even manpower, I would tend to say, think that they would be competing and they'll be working with those experts from these countries, which will definitely have qualitative, like, positive impact on the improvement of our all these sectors that we have mentioned. So I see that these MOUs are not merely MOUs; these have geostrategic and geo-economic kind of importance for Pakistan and for the region, basically, because Pakistan is also an important country. It's just not one-way traffic. It is a win-win. It's a win-win for UAE because we have the critical mass of people. We have the geography also, which has its own advantages. So imagine when our ports like Gwadar and Karachi and Port Qasim, they kind of are in sync with the Dubai port. Imagine the kind of synergy that will be created in terms of international trade, in terms of re-export, in terms of logistics, because Pakistan is at the juncture of West Asia, Central Asia, and has its own geostrategic importance. But that can only be capitalized if we have the requisite technology, if we
Right.
are part of that supply chain, the global supply chain,
Right.
which fortunately is there in UAE, and we have to link with that. Yes, please.
Absolutely. And I'll explore that further as we continue our discussion, because that's essential to the kind of cooperation that we're looking at. But Dr. Mahmood, I'd like your perspective as well, especially in terms of how we're also portraying and talking about the importance of this visit in terms of the economic relations and the trade investment that can possibly be brought through the SIFC into Pakistan. And I want to then understand that while we talk about the number of MOUs that have been signed and the kind of investment that has been unlocked, it of course sounds great in terms of what is happening and what is needed at the moment. But we are at a point, of course, that the first review has ended and we still have the remaining part of the SPA, and then hopefully we'll be entering into another deal with the IMF, and we really need to take a lot of tough measures within a very short time period, and we need to see numbers in flowing into Pakistan very, very soon. And I want to then understand how tangible will these MOUs be, especially given the current urgent circumstances, and whether or not in the most immediate term they will be helpful and beneficial in terms of what our current state of affairs is at the economic front and in terms of our negotiations with the IMF.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, is it for?
Yes, Dr. Mahmood, if you can continue. I'll take a perspective to
So,
Ambassador Saab.
So basically, the challenge for Pakistan is to leapfrog, because I think without going into the whys and hows, but I think we lost that decade, uh, which was supposed to take the decade that we lost, which would have taken us in the stage of development that we want to be. In order for us to leapfrog, we really have to kind of collaborate and cooperate with those economies, with those systems which kind of have been in with the time. So I think in order for us to leapfrog and kind of accelerate and also compensate for the delay which has been caused because of several reasons of misgovernance, political crisis, or whatever you name them, several causes to that. I think the only way for us to really catch up with that delay is by collaborating with those systems, with those countries which have like developed those systems. And obviously, in our immediate neighborhood, JCC is a natural partner for us. And UAE, of course, has a history. Pakistan and UAE has a history of diplomatic and economic relationships. So I think here is the time. Probably, I would, without being Mubarack, that probably is the payback also for the UAE. Well, we built UAE Emirate that time, so perhaps they might come in to reinvent PIA. I will not be surprised if that happens. So I think it's from that point of view that we need to catch up with the world. So I think we need partners who really are competent, whose systems are better.
Right, yes, absolutely. And Ambassador, that may not be so bad anyway. Dr. Mahmood, what's your take on this?
Well, I would second Ambassador's comment on how the GCC countries have actually survived the current economic onslaught which the other countries have seen. So they are basically kind of partners which have a resilient economy. But having said that, once we look into what kind of the business climate we have in Pakistan, that is something which is going to take our economy in the future. The details of the MOUs needs to be seen. The sectors which has been identified are not directly linked with the exports, but definitely it's a good sign, because whenever we find foreign direct investors coming into our country, that means that there is an element of the trust, and that is also a kind of a recommendation for other potential investors, whether it's domestic or international, should come in. But having said that, we have to be very careful. This is a small step. uh, Things needs to be chalked out in a sense that as we have discussed in the earlier programs as well, that we have to build our system in such a manner that it's not a one-off activity or event only. We have to think about the future as well, because whatever investments are coming into Pakistan has to be paid back in terms of the profits and earnings which they are going to be asking us to repatriate. So there has to be some kind of an export performance. And as Ambassador has rightly pointed out, that the port operations is something which is going to facilitate us, because that is something where we can have some kind of an international linkages with the travel cargoes and others. But the other sectors are primarily based on the domestic economic activities. So we have to be very careful in terms of where they're going to come in and what kind of investment plans do they have. Does it lead to some kind of capital buildup within the country, which is going to actually help our economy prosper in terms of some technology transfer or not? These are basically going to be seen in terms of the details as it comes through.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahmood, for that analysis, and we'll explore that further. But now we're going to go and talk about the Prime Minister's arrival to Kuwait, and of course what lies ahead and how his reception has been so far. And for that, we have our senior correspondent, Musharraf Zahoor, who's joined us online. Musharraf, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. So, Musharraf, we know that the Prime Minister just landed in Kuwait, and of course, this is after wrapping up his visit to the UAE. Can you give us details about who received him and what are his agenda items ahead?
Well, after wrapping up his trip to the United Arab Emirates, caretaker Prime Minister Anwarul Haq Kakar has arrived on a two-day visit to Kuwait, and Kuwait's Minister of Water and Power and Renewable Energy, Dr. Jassim, accorded warm welcome to the Prime Minister. Pakistan's ambassador to Kuwait and senior diplomatic officials of both the countries were also present on this occasion. The Prime Minister is scheduled to meet with Kuwait's Crown Prince Sheikh Mashal Al Jaber Al Sabah and the Kuwait's PM Sheikh Ahmad Nawaf Al Ahmad Al Sabah. During his visit, Prime Minister Kakar will witness signing of various memoranda of understanding in the fields of manpower, information technology, mineral exploration, food security, energy, and defense. It is very important that this year also marks the 60th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations between Pakistan and Kuwait. And in this backdrop, this visit of Prime Minister Kakar is also of great importance. Earlier, while leaving for Kuwait at the Al Bateen Airport, UAE Minister of Energy and Infrastructure Suhail Mohammad Al Mazruri and Pakistani diplomatic staff saw the Prime Minister. Yes.
Right. And Musharraf, of course, we know that this is something that is part of his visit to the UAE, and then, of course, Kuwait, and then Dubai, and it's also part of a larger economic cooperation. What do you see, especially in terms of the number of engagements that have been signed with the UAE so far, and how essentially different are those that are awaiting signatures in Kuwait? Are there multiple sectors that we're sort of exploring in Kuwait that haven't been signed in the UAE?
Oh, well, yes, of course. We are hoping that, like in UAE, Pakistan signed a billion worth memoranda of understanding, which will, of course, as our Prime Minister, will yield results in the days to come. And these memoranda of understanding in Arab Emirates were signed in different sectors, including information technology, mineral exploration, food security, energy. And in Kuwait, we are also expecting to sign various memoranda of understanding in the fields of manpower, information technology, mineral exploration, and as well as food security, energy, and defense as well. So it is very important that Prime Minister Kakar's visit to UAE as well as Kuwait will, of course, bring investment to Pakistan, much needed investment, of course. And this will also boost bilateral relations. And in UAE, Prime Minister, in a televised, address, has said that a new era has ushered in after signing of these billion worth agreements and MOUs with the United Arab Emirates. And we are expecting that in Kuwait, his visit will be successful in this regard. And Pakistan will be giving a new dimension to its ties with Kuwait and signing economic agreements, and as well as it will also boost bilateral relations. As we know, a large number of Pakistani manpower has been contributing in Kuwait and as well as UAE's economic activities, and this is also important that Prime Minister is focusing on the fields which also include manpower, and this will also augur well for the trained manpower which is always needed in these countries, and Pakistan the signing of MOU will be a very good development.
Right. Thank you very much, Musharraf, for joining us and giving us the update. Faisal, I'll come to you, especially given, of course, the fact that we have these three countries and we keep talking about the kind of economic cooperation that we're going to be seeing after the overall visit has concluded. But I also want to see the way that we're going to be capitalizing on our individual relationships with these countries and what sort of different aspects are offered by each country. So, for example, if we take a look at what has been done within the UAE, what else is there to explore with Kuwait or Dubai that hasn't been done before? What sort of aspects can even be looked at individually in partnerships with these Gulf states as we move ahead? Do you think that fundamentally there are some factors that we need to be cognizant of in each of these states?
Sana, if we talk about the bilateral relations with all of the Gulf states, I mean, they are equally important. I mean, country-to-country relationships, they are equally important. And yes, you are right about it, that the preferences, of course, when we talk about countries like Qatar and Kuwait, I mean, Kuwait, there are services, and them services, they need manpower, and Pakistan has been giving that manpower since a long time, and that needs to be increased. when we talk about increasing the manpower, of course, as yesterday Farrukh mentioned, that of course in certain sectors Pakistan has to increase its its system in terms that the universities and the colleges, technical or whatsoever related to IT sector and all, they need to provide courses to our manpower, and they need to equip them with the relevant courses that are required out there, so that we can give them the best of the services, and our manpower is at the standard which is required out there. But when we talk about, of course, Qatar, Qatar is a country that is very important in terms of energy crisis which has been faced by Pakistan, and yes, Qatar always helps Pakistan out. But if we talk about Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, they are very important in terms of our remittances which we receive from these countries, especially Saudi Arabia and UAE, and the MOUs which has been signed in UAE, they are quite important. They are worth around $20 billion, which is of course a huge amount, and it is going to be very pivotal in coming coming months and years in terms of we fixing our economy. But when we come to multilateral relations with all of these Gulf states, I mean, there is one aspect which we keep on forgetting, and I think we really need to put focus on that, and that is that Pakistan need to, of course, create further influence within the Gulf states, especially in the GCC, Gulf Cooperation, because that is pivotal for the whole Gulf countries. And to me, I think Pakistan working on Gwadar and CPAC importance, it has a huge importance, and that can be a sort of GCC plus.
Right.
When I say GCC plus, I mean Pakistan having outreach and opening door to the Gulf states. It can be part of GCC, and it can be considered as GCC plus.
Right,
so
but Faisal, is there any multilateral engagement as part of this trip? Because I don't think that we're signing any sort of cooperation or exploring. Okay.
Not so far, but whenever we see a club visit, of course it is a club visit. There are multiple countries, more than one countries, which are being visited by a prime minister. So I'm pretty much sure that they will be having in their in their agenda to, of course, bring up this kind of aspect to this trip as well. And why I say this, because if we become GCC plus, then in future what we can do is, of course, Pakistan can extend a lot of help in terms of, we know that the Gulf countries, they require a bread basket, and Pakistan being an agricultural country, SIFC is an initiative which has been started by Pakistan very recently. Of course, the Chief of the Army Staff is putting up extra efforts in terms of fixing our economy. So in that way, agriculture, it can progress in Pakistan, of course, with the right R&D. Pakistan requires R&D, research and development in the agriculture sector, especially introducing the agri-tech. And when we talk about the agri-tech, which is introduced throughout the world, especially in the Western world, that requires funding, that requires of course foreign direct investment, and that foreign direct investment can be attracted from the GCC countries with the pledges that of course agriculture progression in Pakistan would eventually going to benefit GCC countries as well.
Right.
Of course, when we talk about GCC, with the passage of time, we shouldn't be forgetting that while Pakistan was busy fighting war and terror, our eastern neighbor created sort of influence within the GCC countries in terms of providing them with their requirements, the food requirements, they have been fulfilled to some extent by our eastern neighbor. We have to replace our eastern neighbor in GCC countries, and this is the only way to go forward. And I think this trip is going to be extremely important in that course.
Great, absolutely. Farrukh, the of course aspect whenever we talk about what Pakistan can bring to the forefront and what Pakistan has to offer is also important, given the fact that we're also looking for a lot of things out of our engagements with these countries. And while of course we have the SIFC through which we want to attract more investment in the country, I want to also understand what sort of areas or potential is Pakistan also bringing to the table, not just in terms of our economic cooperations or MOUs that have been signed, but also in terms of a broader engagement, irrespective of whatever the economic scenario would be in Pakistan, that can actually bring forth Pakistan as an important regional player. Is that something that all of these countries can look at and have a role for Pakistan which is more substantial?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the opportunity and the question. I want to actually begin at a lighter note, with a lighter note, particularly when Faisal was talking about various things, and I thought that I'm agreeing with him. Then suddenly he went toward GCC plus and all that. And I thought that, okay, we have been taught to think outside the box, but not so much outside the box that you stop looking at the box at all. Right now, what is happening, Sanam, first of all, this habit most of us have of treating MOUs as something that might not be that binding. You have to understand what kind of effort actually went into, getting them done, right? They say that it takes decades to become an overnight success. So now that you have MOUs, you might think that, okay, there could have been an agreement, there could have been some kind of a declaration or something of that sort. But the fact is that our, state functionaries from army to our foreign office have been working day and night to ensure that these investment avenues are, explored, and their investment actually comes. So finally, if we see ink on a paper, that means that finally we have actually worked out all the, all the wrinkles out of the agreements or the cooperation. Regarding the areas that were, we discussed yesterday in UAE, Pakistan has signed MOUs worth billions of dollars. So that is a known. What is unknown is Kuwait, because you understand that these four countries, Saudi Arab, UAE, Kuwait and Bahrain, they're like, Bretton Woods system. If you get approval from one bank, the other banks actually also start helping you out. So Kuwait is a very important success story, and the areas that we are going to actually sign MOUs with them, what I'm told, is manpower, information technology, mineral exploration, food security, energy and defense. And I think that would also answer your query about what areas of value addition that we can actually offer. Earlier, Faisal was saying that Pakistan needs to replace the workforce from our eastern neighbor. You know what will happen? India and Pakistan will keep on quibbling about this, and in the end, AI will replace both of them, right? My humble submission is that India might have, at some point, added value to their labor, but they have also stopped doing it, especially because at this moment, their government is anti-science. So similarly, we never actually approach these matters the way we should have. There are amazing examples. You are sitting next to two incredible markets. One is, of course, India. The other one is China. And China actually calls you up and says that because we are going for the second round of FTA, sky's the limit. Tell us what you can export to us, right? And we keep on looking at the small list of what we were taught in my school, right, when I was a kid. We haven't actually increased or added value. Similarly, when it comes to workforce, I tell you one thing for sure. They are going to be incredible jobs, and they are going to be high paying jobs. They are going to actually make the future of our next generations or the current workforce. But the problem is you have to learn how to actually integrate AI or automation into your skill set. And that doesn't mean high-fi university degrees. That should be able, we should be able to do that at the TEFTA level, at the local, basic skill set level, and that can be done. Sadly, what is happening is we keep on churning out universities. We were supposed to create centers of excellence. Instead of actually creating more of those, what we end up doing is, Sana, we end up adding degrees, universities without any weightage of degree. So the day we actually start focusing on value addition to our workforce, I tell you, we won't have to actually worry about India's quality of workmanship or somebody else. We will have our own place and our space. One final thing, this is very opportune time for Pakistan to actually put forward the best foot, right? Why? Because usually countries bring their guard down whenever there is a kind of peace, and at that time the worst does not come out of countries. In UAE, we saw that there was Abraham Accords, and we thought that in coming days there's going to be normalization. But then we are seeing what is happening in Gaza. Similarly, what India has done in the past few months, a couple of months since this whole war actually started, their Islamophobia has been quite visible. So that also puts off all of our Arab brethren, because then Indians actually go and start appropriating pre-Islamic symbols, and they say that, look, this also belongs to Hinduism, and one day we are going to install that. So with that kind of a situation, Pakistan's inevitability and importance is reinforced. We can actually crack this thing, and we can take these successes forward. First of all, have conversation with the countries that are demanding or they are going to invest in Pakistan. What kind of market do you need, and what kind of labor do you need, right? Labor in your country, because in Noem, if you are going to send the same badai, same electrician, that is not going to work. Similarly, when you talk about Pakistan, there has to be a diversification of your portfolio. If you do that, this country is made.
Right, absolutely. Ambassador Saab, when we take a look at the situation, especially in terms of what earlier was also being said, in terms of the kind of areas that we can capitalize on and the manpower that Pakistan can also bring to the table and the technology aspects that's involved, I want to then understand how important would it be for the follow-up teams to actually look into what is going on in terms of the practicalities and implementation of the MOUs, and then take it forward. And how much impact do you think that the domestic situation of Pakistan will have on the kind of agreements that we have on the diplomatic level? And I understand that this is between two states and two countries, and governments come and go, but I want to still understand your opinion in terms of how the aspect of certain teams or individuals and their qualities bring to the table, especially when we talk about senior leadership and what they can bring, and how then the change that is, of course, coming in Pakistan via elections will have an impact on such economic front.
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight one or two concepts before I go on to other details. I think I'd like to reiterate that I am hopeful that the concept of creating synergies, not dependencies. You see, whenever in the past, what we have done is that we have, when we are talking to our friends and donors, we kind of have descended into what is called dependency syndrome. That hopefully would not be done. Rather, we should approach these cooperative, these MOUs from the concept of synergy. And what is synergy in economic cooperation? That is where 1 + 1 does not make 2, but 1 + 1 can make 3, it can make 4. That is, that value as well as the quality of the two partners enhances the total sum of value of that very project or that very venture. So I'm hopeful that our people, the government, would approach these cooperation with different GCC countries with that approach. Number one. Number two, very important that I want to say, because you were like so involved in fighting the terrorism the past 2 or 3 decades, we gave an open space to our eastern. I think Pitafi Saab did mention that we gave an open space to India, and as a result, not only we lost economic opportunities, but we actually diluted our traditional political linkages with these strategically important and vital countries. So I think we have to regain and reclaim that not only economic space in the JCC, but political, diplomatic, and the cultural space that we lost there. So by way of collaboration, cooperation, I would tend to be ambitious to see that our manpower in UAE and our manpower in Kuwait. In fact, when I was in I was in Kuwait, as I said, we were among the largest community, but suddenly started dwindling because of various reasons. So I think here is an opportunity that we should actually, out of these MOUs, create that ecosystem and build that confidence of these JCC countries, that one after the other, all the JCC countries start to look at Pakistan as a partner who is looking for a win-win collaboration, win-win cooperation, a partnership which is mutually beneficial. It's not dependency that we are looking for. And the good thing is that this time, because there was a concept of preparing the ground before we went to sign these MOUs. The SIFC is a great concept, because this is what the foreign investors have been thinking, that you have several layers of bureaucracy which kind of delay the decision making. So I think by bringing everybody on one table, all the decision makers, all the departments, I think what is called the ease of doing business hopefully would be improved, and should be actually improved, and it should be kind of at the level of international standards, and that we have to prove, and that an opportunity is a challenge, and challenge is an opportunity always. So here is a challenge also, that how we cope with these opportunities, how do we capitalize on these opportunities. Our bureaucracy has to come up, our technological people have to come up, and I would tend to really recommend, earlier I've been advocating at all the forums, our private sector has to be brought in. Our private sector has a potential. If they don't have, they can always build that. So I think here is the time to see what kind of space our private sector can also have when we are initiating these projects under these programs with UAE, with Kuwait, with Bahrain, with Saudi Arabia. So I think here is the time that one synergy we build with our other countries. There's yet another synergy that we have to build, that is internal synergy between the public sector and the private sector. I think that is missing link, in my view, at this point of time, when we are going for these strategic projects. So I think most importantly, when our Prime Minister, inshallah, comes back with his very successful visit to the Gulf, and comes back, would look at this very important and very vital aspect of implementation and making these collaborative ventures sustainable, because the key is the sustainability. Sustainable development is the key. If any plan, any project beautifully made on a PowerPoint, unless it has the element of sustainability in terms of not only environment, but sustainability in terms of entire chain of systems that serves that which consummates the completion of that very project. So I think we need to come back and look at our home as well, and start to not only capitalize the energy that we have, but we have to tap that human resource, that organizational resource. There are people that they have the expertise, and I think get going with what we want to do it. And I think it's a historical opportunity, we cannot afford to. Then another caution that I want to put, we cannot afford to lose this opportunity. If we lose it, believe me, then I don't know, that will be a big, big loss for us as a nation. But I am pretty optimistic that the way all the stakeholders, and of course the Army Chief deserves the appreciation that how he is trying to use the strengths of his institution in bringing this investment into Pakistan. So what I am looking at it, perhaps those strengths can even be used to what I'm saying for creating those internal synergies as well as the external synergies. And it is through synergies that we can make one plus one into four.
Ambassador, I'm glad you brought that up because Dr. Mahmood, perhaps you can also shed more light on this, especially in terms of the SIFC and how the body in itself is aimed to be something that ensures continuity and that is sustainable, then that is helping us getting in more investment, and then the kind of synergies that we want to create outside of Pakistan also exist between different units within the country and can withstand any political change. And given the current circumstances on where we stand, especially with the kind of economic affairs that we currently see, how important or how imperative do you think it would be to not let any of this impact the workings of the units within the country, and exactly how will we achieve that, whether or not the people involved are the same? Do you think that the bodies or infrastructures are strengthened enough to actually withstand that? Because we've seen other bodies and infrastructures as part of the ministries or other teams in the past also perhaps not really been able to go ahead and bear any sort of change. Why will the SIFC be any different?
Well, as we have been talking about it, that the SIFC is the forum which basically improves on any bottlenecks which exists in the system. And this is important from an investor perspective that whether it's a domestic investor or an external partner, they are looking for security of their investment, trust in the government policies, as well as the futuristic concerns of an economy growing. So from that perspective, that kind of an institution is really essential in the short term, because we have to kickstart our program so that we can achieve that optimum level where the systems actually gets into a momentum. Having said that, what Ambassador has mentioned, that is important from a bilateral sense as well, that we have to engage with the partnering countries because it helps in terms of the exchange of economic agents. And once they are coming here to invest, that is also going to have a rebound impact, because they're going to look around in terms of what potential gains they can further carry in terms of having an export base or some kind of other economic relations as well. So what we see from these kinds of engagements with the rest of the country, especially the GCC countries, is that our overall trade volume would have a positive impact going in the future. But lastly speaking, we have to be careful in terms of enriching our institutions for something futuristic as well. It should not be one-stop solution. Think about improving the system for the long run, and let these be kind of events which actually helps in terms of achieving that momentum.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahmood, for joining us, and thank you very much, Ambassador Saab, for being part of the discussion as well, and giving us your insight into what is going on. Faisal, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. Obviously, there is a tradition when it comes to Arab countries. Our Arab brethren, they are very welcoming, especially towards their brothers. And I just wanted to highlight one of the tradition they have. Earlier, while we were having the footage coming from, of course, UAE and Kuwait, our Prime Minister, when he entered into Kuwait, of course, he was given the traditional kava to him in one of the very tiny cups. This is a tradition of the Arab countries. And there is another tradition that unless you shake your cup, they keep on pouring it inside. So that means they are so welcoming. It is entirely up to us. We have to be up to mark, so that we keep on utilizing their of course their opportunities which
and
they
not
are
shake the
providing
cup.
us,
Right.
and not shake the cup.
Yes, Farrukh.
Not shake the cup
very
at all.
quickly, I just wanted to actually talk about this cup business, especially because while this is tradition, I don't know whether Faisal has ever tasted
I did.
the Arab coffee. We speak a lot. No, it's beautiful. We keep on talking about Turkish coffee and American coffee and Colombian coffee, but the Arab, the way they cook it is also amazing. So my whole point is that when we are talking about this relationship, because they never replace it, it keeps on actually getting concentrated on a pot, right? So similarly, allow our relationship to keep on simmering and keep on getting deeper and deeper. If we do that, things will start improving.
That's of course the hope. Thank you, Farrukh. Thank you, Faisal, for joining us today. And we're going to be back tomorrow, and we'll talk more about what's happening both in Pakistan and in the world. That's all that we have from the debate. See you tomorrow.